January 15th episode of the Alt Center Conspiracy Clearinghouse. 5 weekly minutes of sanity in a 24/7 insane world. In our first topic tonight, we have a conspiracy from the right, which claims that the Secretary of State of Georgia, Raffensperger, conspired against Donald Trump and the Republican Party to take away their Senate seats in the January 2021 runoff. The far right believes that Raffensperger betrayed President Trump and the Republicans by not somehow finding an extra 12,000 some votes for them in order to win at least one of the 2 Senate seats that was available. Meanwhile, other evidence has come out that, in fact, Mr. Raffensperger should be called Raffensperger, which is his nickname on the left. Secretary of State Raffensperger, according to them, has taken and purged 198,000 honest, real, registered voters and purged them from the lists of Georgia in order to try to keep them from voting in the January 6th runoff. In fact, he succeeded. A judge ordered him to cease and desist. He was able to stall long enough that it worked. A check by the ACLU of Georgia and journalists has revealed that almost all of the votes that he claimed should be purged because the people had moved. In fact, the people had not moved. In another example of what Raffensperger tried to do, he tried to make a new rule where if you didn't have a car registered in the county in which you were registered to vote, you wouldn't be able to vote. An interesting addition to the Constitution, according to his critics. Where in the Constitution did it say you couldn't vote unless you owned a car? Hated by the right, hated by the left. An interesting place to be for the Secretary of State of Georgia. Billionaires today. The first billionaire we're going to talk about is Sheldon Adelson. Sheldon Adelson died in his 80s. He was a huge donator to right-wing causes and perhaps Donald Trump's biggest financial supporter. Mr. Adelson died. Some people have speculated that he died of a broken heart or shame, having watched what his man, Donald, did in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. Others have speculated that he died of the COVID virus, but since he was a Trump supporter and didn't like to wear masks, that he became sick with this disease and died from it, as many people in their 80s do. These are speculations verging on conspiracy theory. Even more importantly, to us at the Alt Center Conspiracy Clearinghouse, we have received a letter. We have received a letter that we cannot verify. We are not sure of its truth, and the people from whom it came refuse comment. They will not verify this one way or the other. It's in small type. I'm going to use my glasses to read it. This is the first time in the world that this alleged confession, call it that if you will, has come. This alleged message from billionaire George Soros is read here for the first time. You got it right. I was behind many of the offshore betting sites that made much money from Donald Trump voters losing their bets on the election held in November 2020. You also guessed right that I was behind the DNA studies of the human excrement left in the Capitol building by the Trump seditionists. As I guessed, these DNA studies do indicate that Trump supporters have a much higher percentage of Neanderthal DNA than do the normal populace. That said, my third most important, and by far most important, my third and by far most important revelation tonight is that I, George Soros, am Q. How better to serve the USA and its glorious Constitution than by making myself a target? I made myself a target for those who would turn off their brains and be willing to commit sedition against the United States. Thanks in part to my QAnon project, most of the Americans who would give fascism their vote of honor rather than our democratic republic constitution are now unveiled. They've held forth on the carefully monitored social media platforms. They've demonstrated, and sometimes they've committed crimes. And now some have even invaded the Capitol. I wish I could say thank you to them. Now Homeland Security, the FBI, and the state and local authorities know who they are. This was my goal as Q, and I succeeded. Some now will try to pretend that they are me. They were my lieutenants, and some of them didn't know that I was even George Soros. But really now, anyone who still would follow Trump after his displays of cowardice and betraying his own so-called people deserve what they get, which is likely to be prison. And certainly a place on the no-fly list. However, I, George Soros, have another suggestion. There's a lot of free space in one place reserved for terrorists against the United States. Guantanamo Bay. May all of you seditionist, terrorist, no-flyers have a good last flight to Cuba. Sincerely, George Soros. Okay, was that really from George Soros? It came to us in a very interesting way. It came to us in a way that nothing has come before. Let it be evaluated for what it's worth, please. That's it for this week's Alt Center Conspiracy Clearinghouse. 5 minutes weekly of sanity in a 24/7 insane world.